Welcome into our Over the Hump conversation. Evan Budrovich with you, talking with Ricky Ray, the Deputy Athletics Director, who has a very important role this fall, setting up football games on less than a month's notice. Ricky, let's dive right in and discuss those games coming up. Georgia Southern was already a game that was scheduled previously to set up the opener for the year. What is it like around, let's say, August 7th, August 8th, when the Big South comes out with their legislation and you're tasked with trying to find 3 games in a short window?
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing about college football is obviously, people are scheduling games 5, 6, 7, 10 years out. And then you turn around and say, all right, we've got to, before that announcement, there was already a lot of movement. People were losing a game here or a game there, and you're trying to figure out how to replace it. But then, you get that announcement and you find out, oh, okay, so now we have 3 more opportunities, and the entire schedule that we've had set for 3 or 4 years now is out the window. That's definitely different. I know most sports are, a year or 2 out scheduling. Football is not. And even these other sports being a year or 2 out, still you find something out that night, and you've got a month. That's different, so it was a challenge. It was a fun challenge. It was a fun challenge for a lot of people, I think. Some people may not call it fun, but it was definitely a challenge, and I feel like we were really fortunate to end up in the situation we did.
With the Big South granting the legislation to allow these non-conference games to be played, when that news comes to your desk, is it a Wolf of Wall Street scene where your phone starts buzzing and you're calling the Sun Belt and the ACC and some of these local conferences?
Yeah, so we, just sort of a brief timeline or synopsis of it. We had already been talking. I had been having a lot of conversation with Appalachian State about replacing the Davidson game, which had come off our schedule a little bit earlier. And so obviously went ahead and tried to lock that date in so we could work around that. I think my first message to Wake Forest was at about 10 or 10:30 the night we found out that this was going to happen, because I think they had lost their +1 game that day. So next morning, I got to talk to Coastal, and really just the goal and the plan. After I talked to Coach Mentor that night and just got sort of a roadmap of where he wanted to go, you're looking at the map and trying to figure out who are the closest teams to us that have openings, that have dates that work for us, and you sort of work from there. And so I feel like we're very fortunate. We're not getting on a plane. We're not traveling all that far. Just for a bit of perspective, I think the closest FCS school that's still playing is the Citadel, which is further than any trip we're going to take. So it really worked out well for us for travel and for all of that. We had some options to get on a plane and go some places. We had some options. There was actually 1 or 2 possibilities of a FBS coming here. The one thing we never really got in the scenario afterwards were FCS teams wanting to come here. And so once we got to that point where we already had the 2 road games, you knew Wake Forest was going to be a third. You really start to look then at cost, and to get our stadium ready for 1 game, plus get it COVID ready, plus actually pay to host the game. Now you're looking at essentially the same amount of money to take a bus trip. And so that's when it became evident that 4 road games where there was a guarantee involved was probably the best decision. And I'm extremely happy with the way it worked out. I think we've got some quality opponents, some quality games. Georgia Southern, we had them scheduled. They're going to be really good again. Always have been. Coastal Carolina's in that transition where they're sort of finding their way in the Sun Belt. But a good game. Appalachian State is a top 25 team. I don't care what the Associated Press says. They're a top 25 team and should have been ranked top 25 in the preseason. And then obviously Wake Forest is really good right now as well. So it'll be some good competition, good learning experience for all of us, and a great opportunity to try to see sort of what that next level of competition is like.
If you don't mind peeling back the curtain a little bit, because fans in years past have seen announcements of NC State and ECU and North Carolina over the next 5 to 6 years, what do those conversations differ between these where you have 3 weeks and those where you have months to plan out these games years in advance?
Yeah, I think the funniest example of that might be the text I sent Doug Banks up at Appalachian State. So we signed the contract, and then the next morning I texted him. I was like, "Hey, do you have any idea on a game time?" Never sent a text like that, because usually when you sign these contracts, you're 6, 7, 8 years out, and game times is the least of your concern at any point right then. And so we laughed and was like, "Yeah, this is the new world that we live in." But yeah, when you're trying to schedule, years out, you're looking at trying to make your schedule the best it can be for you. So you're trying to get your FBS school. We have been trying to get, we've sort of, our plan was to ramp up a little bit. So we played Coastal in the first year of scholarships. Then Troy, we had Georgia Southern, we've got Liberty next year. So trying the group of 5 to try to stay in that group of 5. And then we added East Carolina for 22 to sort of ramp up. Obviously the Wake Forest game being a Power 5, and adding Appalachian this year, who is as Power 5 on the field as you can get, sort of changes that a little bit. But you're trying to find dates and ways that, yeah, we're going to go play somebody on the road, but then you want to make sure your week before is a little more tolerable, all these things. So you can do these things when you're 4, 5, 6 years out. When you're a month out and phone's ringing and you're trying to get in touch with people, and you're trying to hold off people until you find out if this deal is going to work and that deal is going to work. It's a little different. It kind of is a free for all, but I've just been, again, I'm really happy with the way, it turned out exactly, I think, what Coach Minter and his program wanted. Again, we've got an opportunity to play some really good opponents, which is going to result in really good media coverage, publicity for us. That Wake Forest game right now is the only game scheduled in the country that day. So, I think just what that means for our program, the athletics program as a whole, and the university itself, that could be a really big night for us. So pleased with the way it turned out. Was pleased with the schedule we had before all this. We had Mercer coming here. We were going to Elon. There was some really attractive games on the schedule there, but I think just as teams started dropping, and Hampton decided they weren't going to play, and different things like that started happening, we probably had 20 some odd teams on our schedule at some point this year, just in and out of places, and then it ends up being these 4. So it's definitely been a work in progress over the last probably 2 months.
You mentioned those series with the Elons, the William & Marys, the Mercers of the world at the FCS level. It's fascinating too, because when you started here, and gosh, just 4 years ago now, big games were Presbyterian and playing Charleston Southern on the schedule, because we were at the time in the Pioneer League and now to the Big South. How do those conversations change over the years to now you can get on the phone with an ACC school or with teams of that level versus how it was when you first got here?
Yeah, it's all about the scholarships. To play the FBS schools, you've got to have that 2-year average, and so the scholarship conversation changed everything. And so now we're able to play. We've talked about North Carolina. We've got a couple of ACC schools we haven't released. We've got an SEC school we haven't released. So we're able to have those conversations and play those teams because of the scholarships. But what you get excited about that, but then you lose sight of exactly what you said. Now we can play a home and home with Elon, which is, that's a great trip for our fans. That's a quick trip for our fans. William & Mary, like, who doesn't want to go to Williamsburg for the weekend? The Citadel's on our schedule. Who doesn't want to go to Charleston for the weekend? So you're able to play some really good competition, but you're also, for your fans, able to go visit some nice places, and it encourages them to travel with us and really make a weekend of it. And that's kind of that next step in the evolution of our football program here is, in the Pioneer League, short of Davidson, you couldn't go anywhere. It was just really hard to find anywhere you could get to easy, much less a quick weekend trip that was a nice vacation as well. And so now it's been that next evolution of moving the program forward is, there's some, our fans can now look forward on our schedules in a couple of years and say, hey, it's a great chance to go visit this place or that place, or an easy chance just to jump in the car and drive, an hour to Elon or what have you. So reflecting back on the days of flying to Iowa and Indiana and all that. I mean, that's just again, it's a great opportunity, and it's a lot better for our kids as well.
Obviously, nothing will beat the San Diego trips of years past in the PFL, but you're right. There certainly is progress being made. Ricky, I also want to touch base with you. We've talked about scheduling, but just from a coaching standpoint, when you're having those conversations with Mike Minner or Kevin McGeehan or those coaches of these sports where they are the guarantee games in place, what was it like with Minner this year, just getting his sense of it and maybe his philosophy on who he wants to schedule? Or I know this year's a little more regional based, but just an overall philosophy.
Yeah, Coach Minner's been really good about playing any. His conversation, his take on things usually is, "I'll play anybody," which certainly is nice. Again, we try to keep it to in the non-conference. You're trying to be cognizant of finances. You don't want to fly halfway across the country. You want to try to go places and play schools that are similarly matched. So. Again, for us, it's great to be playing SoCon schools. It's great to be playing CAA schools because they have a little bit more of that FCS history and playoff success. And it's great for us to be able to match up against those schools and sort of see where we are at any given point. To me, that's been the biggest thing is just, you try to keep it regional. You try to keep it to where your fans can get there, but then also play competition that makes you better. And, again, Coach Minner has been, he, as far as working with him on where he wants to go and what he wants to do, he's been really good about, look, I'll play who I need to play to get better. And football, having the sort of the 4-game rule and all that other stuff gives you the opportunity to really pick and choose from a coaching standpoint how you use those games. But for us moving forward now in the Big South, as the conference membership grows on the football side, we've added a couple of schools now. So those non-conference games, you're not having to fill as many, which is great because we're always trying to fill 1 or 2 more slots than everybody else. And you just start to run out of people, to play. So I think that's going to be good. And the schools that we're adding to the conference, A&T's has got a tremendous program. And so all of a sudden you have ramped up your strength of schedule just by adding them. So you have to take that into account now moving into the future. Like, okay, maybe we don't overload the non-con as much. So there's a lot of pieces to it. But again, we're trying to play people that are going to give us the best opportunity to grow the program, try to hit some good recruiting areas and, make it fun for our folks and our fans as well.
And finally, Ricky, a huge part of your role as that deputy athletics director is overseeing a lot of departments, including the marketing and the digital side. So a big part of what fans are kind of asking us now is, how do we stay connected? How do we interact with our fans, our programs, the teams we like to work with? What are some things you've observed just from a big picture standpoint about that communication and how we as Campbell can reach out to them and keep them engaged?
Yeah, it's been tremendous to watch sort of how everybody's had to go through this time period. And, the one thing I know about external groups, marketing, ticketing, communications, what you guys do, you're in this because you love the games. You love the action. You love being in the arena or the stadium. You love the preparation. You love to tell the stories. And so when those competitions go away, I mean, it's hard for us. It's like you sort of lose that purpose a little bit. So I've been blown away. I've been extremely proud of how everyone has sort of taken that step back and said, okay, well, what can we do? And how we've adjusted our thought process. Now it's more about the recruiting aspects, more about let's highlight some parts of the university. Let's tell some more stories in longer forms that we can, while still communicating everything we need to communicate on a daily basis. And, I've also just watched everybody sort of take that time to sort of get better at what they do, which is great. I mean, you're at a point now where it's not 7 days a week, every night there's some sort of game or something to be at. So what do? You've sort of been handed this opportunity to slow down a little bit, whether you wanted to or not. So you take that, you try to get better, and that's all you can do. And I mean, that's our student athletes, our coaches, everybody. Like if you've been handed this opportunity, you may as well take advantage of it and just try to get better, as a professional and as a person. And so I've seen a lot of that as well. I've seen some amazing creativity, even departments that I don't directly oversee, again, you guys have had to sort of reinvent yourselves, and, ticketing is out there, turning into fundraisers now, and everybody's doing their part. But again, like I mentioned, programs that I'm not directly over, our athletic trainers, they have had to do things nobody ever would have guessed or thought they've been put in positions they would have to. And so it's just been tremendous. Our academic advisors trying to help teach over Zoom or whatever, just there's so many pieces, and so many people have stepped up and done some tremendous things. It's been pretty incredible to watch, but it gives you a lot of pride that everyone has really taken this on and been able to sort of keep the train on the tracks. And one day it'll be back to normal, but until then, it's just trying to do the absolute best you can, to keep moving both the program and the university forward.
I find it fitting you have a Buies Creek Astros helmet, states that you've been at previous jobs, because not to toot your horn too much, but a huge part of the athletic department has shifted towards sport administrators working with specific teams and having folks like yourself and Omar deal with individual teams on a case-by-case basis. So I'm curious, especially with your role with cheerleading and men's soccer, and I'll talk with men's soccer first and foremost because of their role in the NCAA tournament. What is that like working with these coaches more on that one-on-one experience and trying to navigate through an NCAA tournament or Big South championships or things of that nature?
Yeah, that's when it's fun, right? Like when you can, you jump in the car and you're driving all over the place on a moment's notice, basically. I even flash back to Greenville a couple years ago with baseball and Justin Hare, and you go down there and you're in the meetings, you're in the dugout, you're on the field up until first pitch, and then you're out there right afterwards trying to figure out what's next. And we stood out there on the field 15 times that night trying to figure out if it was ever going to stop raining so we could try to get 3 outs and all that kind of stuff. And so those are parts of the job that are fun when you look back on them and think about just your involvement. The run men's soccer had this year was unbelievable. They were, so good. And the fact that, the NCAA sent us on the road and we got a pretty convincing win for our first NCAA soccer win was tremendous. And you always like that, you want it to be convincing, you don't want to, just sort of back into one. It was great to prove that we belonged. And then, obviously going and playing one of the best teams in the country, in Virginia. So those are great. And our coaches are great. They're easy to work with. You get to know the student athletes a little bit more that way. But yeah, it's been a good run. It's been a lot of fun. I think that, again, that's one of the parts of what we're doing now that's a little tougher is, now you're having to answer questions that you have no idea what the answer is. You'll field 5 questions and you might can answer 1. Then you've got to go sort of dig up what the other 4, with everything going on right now. It's a lot easier when it's game related or season related or whatever. But, again, I think our coaches have taken this opportunity to do some things to get better as well. And so, again, when we come out of the other side of this thing, I'm excited for where we're going.
Ricky, I certainly appreciate the time. And I know there's a lot of different roles you have going on right now, trying to get these schedules going and figure out football. So I'm glad we got to talk about it and appreciate you joining us here on Over the Hump.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime.